Welcome to Everyday Martial Artist, a weekly podcast where you'll join me, Brian Doucette, as I interview a different martial artist each episode and hear their story. Some guests you may have heard of, and some you probably haven't. Be sure to subscribe where all your favorite podcasts are available. Also visit our website at everydaymartialartist.com. If you're listening for a specific interview, I sure hope you'll stay and check out the other episodes. A very special thank you to Topher Williams for our custom theme music. And now, the newest episode of Everyday Martial Artist. Everyday Martial Artist is brought to you by KOOnline.com for all your martial arts needs. Sparring and safety gear, rank belts, uniforms, weapons, patches, and more. Wholesale supplies made by martial artists for martial artists. Visit us today at ko-online.com. Hey, business leaders, want your audience more focused than a monk in a staring contest? Want them grinning bigger than when they found out their in-laws aren't coming for Christmas? Then you need the amazing Arthur Fratelli. Arthur is a TEDx speaker, Last Comic Standing alum, and lifelong martial artist, traveling the country, captivating audiences at conferences, corporate events, and schools. His high-energy keynotes blend failure, focus, and flow with comedy, magic, and jaw-dropping skill. Facts fade, but stories stick, and Arthur delivers a TEDx-worthy experience they'll never forget. Book now at theamazingarthur.com because your event deserves more energy than a caffeine-fueled ninja. Hello and welcome to Everyday Martial Artist. I'm your host, Brian Doucette, and as you do every week, we're joined by a brand new guest talking about their life and their journey throughout the world of martial arts. My guest today started his martial arts training in 1993 at the Roanoke Bujinkan Dojo in Virginia, and in 1998 received his Shodan. The following year, he enlisted in the Navy, where he served 22 and a half years before retiring in 2021. While in the Navy, he was primarily a small arms and crew served weapons instructor and also taught defensive tactics. In 2004, he opened a small dojo in Chesapeake to continue his own training, and in 2006 traveled to Japan to test for his Godan. He lived in Japan from 2017 to 2018, and after retiring in 2021 became a deputy sheriff in Virginia and opened his first public dojo in 2022. He was recommended by a previous guest of the show, Mr. Dan Blizniak. Please welcome my guest today, Mr. Joseph Ray. How are you doing today, Joseph?
Doing well, sir. Good evening.
Seriously, man, I'm looking forward to this. I love when guests recommend other guests. Those always turn out to be great interviews, so I'm looking forward to learning more about you.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it as well. Dan is a really great guy.
Yeah, he is. I've had so many people compliment on his episode and say that's one of their favorite episodes. I'm really glad he returned my call and we were able to make that happen. So it's a lot of people are enjoying that one, and hopefully we'll get the same reaction for you.
Sure. I hope you get those Tomfa.
I'm planning on it, man. It's on the list. I'm hoping to treat myself this summer after I get some bills paid off, but I definitely want to get a pair of those. So it'd be fun. As you know, I know you said you've been listening to the show a bit, so you kind of know what we do and how we get started. I mentioned you started in 1993, but of course, I want to know what led to that. I want to know, what age you were, what made you make that decision. Was there a certain thing that you saw or heard or whatever, where that first spark came from that kicked off your martial arts journey?
Sure. I would guess, it's funny, I've been listening a little bit. It seems to be a common thing. And I guess my first real desire to do martial arts is when I was younger and saw Karate Kid for the first time.
Nice.
And man, I just needed a Mr. Miyagi. Mm-hmm. But I live out here still, lived in kind of a rural area, and it just wasn't available. And my parents weren't really going to take me out of town to go do this, kind of thing, because my grades just didn't merit it. We'll leave it at that.
I get that.
So always kind of in the back of my mind, I was fascinated by martial arts and swords. And, my heroes growing up, we had Conan, we had Luke Skywalker, we had He-Man, we had Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. Those were kind of the guys in my personal pantheon.
Yep, I love it.
And when I didn't train in martial arts, I pretended I was doing sometimes in the woods with a stick.
Okay, that's cool. I think a lot of young guys our age probably did that. So.
Yeah. Well, and then it's kind of interesting. I was, in 1992, I was with my best friend. I went on vacation with him down to Myrtle Beach, and we were hanging out at an arcade. And this is, at the time, Mortal Kombat was the big game. And I only mention that because I remember hanging out around this Mortal Kombat machine. And a guy came into the arcade, and I noticed that he was wearing tabby, which just kind of, it's like, he's got ninja shoes on. And I asked him, I had to ask, and it ends up he was teaching martial arts down in the Virginia Beach area, and he had kind of slipped into the arcade after a class because he was looking for one of the students.
Okay.
So almost like the setting of some B-rated child abduction movie. we asked this guy 100 questions. I was 14 at the time. And he agreed to meet us in front of our condo later that evening. It was a pretty public place. I mean, so I wasn't worried about getting snatched up.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is my 14-year-old logic here. So, I remember him saying, okay, well, throw a punch at me. And at 14, thought about it for a second. My friend's like, I'm not doing it. So I threw the best punch I thought I had. And I remember looking towards him. And then all of a sudden I looked at the sand. And then I looked at the sky above me. And then somewhere in there I made impact.
Nice.
And got up, wasn't sure what happened. He's like, okay, do it again. And I fired off another one. Pretty sure he did the same thing because I know it was really a pretty similar result. And I was just hooked. And he hung out with us for a couple hours and just talked about martial arts. Okay. And he was talking about ninjutsu. And I was, of course, I have all these Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle images in my head and watching Shokasugi movies when I was younger and buying Ninja magazine and stuff. And I was just, it was the coolest thing ever, I thought. I remember him, and I was like, this is amazing. Too bad there's nothing like this where I live. And he told me that if you're meant to train, you'll find it. And I remember, and that sounded like some pretty good, Master Yoda wisdom for a teenager. Mm-hmm. So the next year, turned 15, and I started looking around because I wanted to take I was like, all right, I'm tired of thinking about it. It's like I want to study martial arts. And so I started through the yellow pages, for those of you that are old enough to remember what they were, and I just started looking up martial arts. And what I wanted to find was something with weapons, because I had the fascination with the weapons. When I remember in the yellow pages, I found a Roanoke Bujinkan Dojo and asked about it. And the instructor told me I was welcome to come by, sit and observe a class. So I did, and at that point, I realized I sat down because in the yellow pages it didn't say anything about ninjutsu,
right? But
they were showing what I had seen down at the beach.
Okay.
And, it had that little moment of destiny kind of feeling. So I was so super excited because it would offer you a trial month for free just to come try it out and see if it's something that you were going to stick with before you signed any kind of paperwork or anything. And my parents were just not as thrilled with it as I was because, like I mentioned earlier, I really wasn't doing too terribly well at school.
Right.
At that point, I decided I was going to show my parents, and I got a job, and I started working part-time so I could pay my own way, which is perfect teenager logic versus doing better in school. I'll just show them and get a job and pay for it myself.
Of course.
And so I did. It was the first thing I ever did for myself. And that was December 1st of 1993, and I've never turned back.
Wow. You were completely into it, as a young kid. You wanted to do it for so many years. Finally found it, finally got there. Think back to your first 1 or 2 classes. What was it? Because, if you didn't like it, you could have went and looked for another school. So what was it about that school, that instructor, that once you got there that made you stick with it for all those years?
They terrified me.
Okay.
I was watching, and the class that I got to watch, I didn't want, it wasn't a beginning class. Mm-hmm. So they were thumping each other pretty hard. And people are being thrown, they're landing, but they're responding with ukeme. I mean, they're hitting the ground hard, but they're rolling right back up to their feet and then going right back at it. I don't remember what weapons came out, but the latter part of the class, various weapons were brought out, and they were training with these weapons, and I was hooked. I was like, okay, this is all I ever want to do forever.
Nice. And you were there was it 5 years you stayed there until you got your Shodan?
Sure. 1998, I tested for Shodan. And that Shodan, the Shodan test, first degree black belt, was a brutal test.
Okay. And
it should have been. It was like a rite of passage. My instructor, he knew who was going to pass, but the test was more for me than it was for him. Mm-hmm. And I remember after taking the test, I went home, to my fiance, and I was dehydrated. My lips were purple. My lip was busted. I had enough time to take a shower before I had to go to work. And she's like, well, did you pass? I was like, I don't know. And like, I won't know till the next class. And she's like, well, what do you, I was like, I don't even really care. And she's like, well, how can you not care? I was like, it's like, of course I care. It's just, if I didn't pass, I'm not ready because I've got nothing else I could give it.
Right.
That was everything I had. I don't have anything else left.
You left it all on the mat.
That was it. And then I went to work and was promoted to Shodan the next class.
So what are some of the things you had to do during the test?
We have a series of techniques called the Kihon Happo, which are fundamental techniques. I had to demonstrate all of those techniques. Okay. And I had to work against all of those techniques and show ukeme with all those techniques. our postures, we call them kami, our different stances and whatnot. I had to demonstrate all of the ones I had been shown, as well as demonstrate techniques from it. Then with all the weapons that had been shown up to that point, which is the hanbo, the bow, the sword, the chain, the knife, I had to demonstrate techniques with those weapons, demonstrate techniques against others with those weapons, and then demonstrate techniques on the receiving end of those weapons.
Okay.
And then at the end of class was randori, which was our free response. It's where we're getting on the mat and we're mixing it up. Mm-hmm. And the randori was not with me working with other non-Dan level students. It was the senior black belts coming and kind of wearing you out a little bit. Nice. And it was really kind of just to see, can you keep your head while you're kind of having your tail handed to you? And I did. I had my tail handed to me.
Yeah. So was there any kind of like verbal or written aspect to the test?
No, because at that point, it was a fairly small, it was a very, kind of intimate dojo, for lack of a better term. The teacher knew what I knew.
Okay.
Is can I demonstrate it under pressure? And the test was really for me to see what I could do.
Okay. So then after you passed, did you take a little break or just jump right back into it and keep going to the class and start working?
I couldn't wait, because now I could go to the black belt classes.
Nice. And how different were those?
They were intense. And it was, what was neat is, so when I started training, it was my passion. Like it's when I would go home, I'd be outside at night and I was training. I would get out and go into the woods and I would train. And as I made rank, when I made green belt, I'd still go to the white belt classes. And then when I got into the upper ranking green belts, I would still go to the lower ranking green belt class and the white belt class, because that's just what I did.
Nice.
And I just couldn't get enough of it then. If I was interested in something, it was always 110%. And if I wasn't interested, you just weren't going to get me moving. So it's hard to even put words to the feeling. I just absolutely fell in love with this, like the depth of what I was studying.
So at your peak there, how many classes a week were you probably going to?
Easily 5 or 6 classes a week.
Nice.
Easily. And that's not counting training at home.
Yeah. Now, did that style have any competition aspect to it, or was it purely self-defense?
No, it wasn't. There was no competition aspect to it.
Okay.
And not even as much self-defense as it was studying these old martial arts. You're talking, so, martial means military. So like self-defense would be not showing up to the battlefield.
Okay.
These weapons and things we were teaching were really meant for killing an adversary in combat on the battlefield, more so than self-defense. However, there's definitely a self-defense aspect to it, but it wasn't really just a self-defense class. It was really studying a traditional system of Japanese combat, which was you weren't as worried about yourself versus the objective.
Okay. You mentioned, learning the old styles, plural. So there wasn't just one set style at the school. You were learning multiple styles. Yeah,
it's very interesting. So in the Bujinkan Dojo, they have there's 9 separate ruha, 9 different families or ways of thinking that have been inherited by the headmaster. And they're all a little different. Some of them are radically different. And there's just, it's interesting. It's like, not how far do you want to go? It's how deep can you go? And my answer to that is until I drowned. Like, I want to go as deep as I can get.
So a year later, when you made the decision to enlist in the Navy, was it a hard decision? Was martial arts part of that? And you were thinking, do I really want to give this up? Did that come into play at all?
Martial arts were the reason that I joined.
Okay.
My instructor was pretty patriotic, and his instructor was a Marine during Vietnam.
Okay.
And like I was saying earlier, that whole idea of that martial being military, it's like, why would I study this and not actually do it? Let me put myself in the environment to go. Like, the military is what made sense to me.
Right.
So that's exactly where I went. I didn't think of it as a place where I was going to stop my training. It's just like, okay, now I can make it the way I live.
So while you were in the military and serving, I know there's times where, you were home and you were able to open a small dojo and you traveled to Japan, and we'll get to all that. But while you were actually like away living on a Navy base, did you find some place to actually continue your training other than on your own?
Sure. Well, I mean, I trained on my own, like when I was in A school and stuff up in the Great Lakes.
Mm-hmm.
This was about the time that UFC was getting real big and everybody was doing Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and MMA wasn't a thing, but Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And at the base gym, I'd find these other martial arts guys and we would kind of cross train.
Nice.
I remember working against guys who, I remember, I almost, if you remember the old Bugs Bunny cartoon, where like Daffy Duck gets his bill knocked around the back of his head.
Yep.
I almost got duck billed because I was working with this guy who was a second degree black belt in Taekwondo.
Okay.
And at that point, the only Taekwondo I had ever been exposed to was very, I'll just say, kid friendly.
Mm-hmm.
And so at Taekwondo, I didn't even see it like, okay, this isn't even a real martial art. I mean, I remember I'm 21 here, so I have no real world experience yet.
Right.
And so this guy, his teacher had studied under a guy named He Cho, who used to be in all these old black belt magazines.
He Cho.
Yes.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, he's a legend.
Well, that guy that I was training with, he spun around and his heel, I barely moved my head. Barely got off the line of attack. And then the next 3 or 4 kicks were just falling in rapid succession after that.
Mm-hmm.
After the initial shock, I was able to grab him and we went to the mat. But I remember that first kick almost, I learned a lot in a very short amount of time. And, I was cocky. I wanted to go out in this kind of Musha Shugyo, go out and kind of test what I had learned. And I remember another time where I was working with a guy who was doing Gracie Jiu-Jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
And this is still, I'm at Great Lakes, Illinois, at the base gym. And I let him put me in a choke because I wanted to see if I could get out of it. And he set that choke. And I went to a place of just violence. Where he let me go. I rolled away from him and I stayed down on one knee. And the only reason I stayed on one knee is because if I'd have stood up, I'd have fallen down. I couldn't stand up.
Wow.
And he let me go because of the pressure points and stuff I was hitting. He didn't think he had his choke set. And that was a pretty good learning experience right there because he almost put me out.
That's cool.
It was fun. I mean, you're young and you're bulletproof and I had free medical insurance.
There you go. Cross training, man. It's so important. And like you said, just on that short amount of time, you learned how many lessons and stuff that you still remember to this day. So, I mean, I remember that too. We, find people in other styles and get together on weekends and just, I trained with people in boxing and in judo and in hapkido and any style I could find if they're willing to practice stuff. I had a foreign exchange student from Italy my senior year, and he, I think it was like a green belt or blue belt in Wado Ryu, and did some training. Did some training with him. I showed him some Shodan and some Tung Sado, and he showed me some Wado Ryu. It was really cool.
Oh, very, very cool. Yeah. And also while I was up in Great Lakes, I had bought all the training videos because, I had all this extra money that I wasn't paying bills with.
Mm-hmm.
And I was buying every video that existed on our system and just filling notebooks with notes.
Okay.
And I've still got like dozens of notebooks, some that I were working on this morning, actually. But like I just continually writing these things down so that I wouldn't lose them and I could go back to them.
Nice. And how long are you in Great Lakes then?
That was after a total of about eight or 9 months because you got boot camp and then you have your follow-up. I had my follow-up school there.
Okay. And what was next after that?
I went to the USS Ponce in Norfolk, stationed on a ship.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I got there, I remember I had a web TV and I was reaching out to, I had gotten married while I was in A school, snuck home on Memorial Day weekend, got married. So my wife, we could start receiving the extra pay and my wife could get under insurance and we'd have that money kind of waiting for us when I got out. So we'd have money to buy our stuff.
Nice.
And moved into Norfolk and I started looking in web TV, started getting on a couple of websites looking for displaced members of the Bujinkan or people that wanted to train in ninjutsu who were in my area. And you had others that were like military, island of misfit toys out there from just, people who joined the military didn't have a place to train.
Right.
And we started getting together in parks. And then I had set aside a room in my base housing where we could train.
How many people did you find from your system?
Initially, it was just a couple.
Okay.
Then in 2004, we bought a house and I had a detached one-car garage, which I matted. I hung a kamadana inside and we put the mats in. We hung up weapons and then I started a small dojo. It was really just because I needed bodies at the time. I just needed people to train with.
Mm-hmm.
And it was on an average about a half, 6 to 8 of us.
Okay.
And I had that going for years.
Wow.
And we used to travel to all sorts of seminars across the U.S. I'd, travel to Japan to train. Yeah, that was it. That was my thing. I can't even call it a hobby because it's what I lived for.
Right. So during that time, did you bring your instructor out to do any trainings, or were you able to go back to do any trainings, or pretty much staying there?
Well, I lived about 4 hours away from where I grew up. So I would still sneak back to Roanoke for the black belt classes. They used to be on Friday nights when I could make them, as well as go support any seminar that my instructor, had at the time.
Nice. So talk a little bit about going to Japan for your test in 2006.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a strange thing. So in 2006, I think it was my second trip to Japan. Might have been my third. I think it was my second.
Okay.
We're in the Hombu Dojo, which is, the home dojo in Noda. And one of the Shihan were teaching class that night, Nagato sensei. And it was just a regular class, but I'll preface it. This was late November. Mm-hmm. And the biggest seminar that was held in the entire year was the first week of December. It's called the Daikomyosai. Okay. And it was a celebration of the Soke's birthday. So I'd come into Japan to go to the Daikomyosai, and I was going to take my test in the Daikomyosai, but I got there early just so I could keep, if you're going to spend the money to go to Japan, I want to go to all the classes that I can. Right. So I'm in Hombu that night, and there's probably 25 people in there training. And Nagato sensei says, hey, who here tonight is going to be taking the Godan test at the Daikomyosai? Well, there was me and just one other guy in the dojo that night. So I raised my hand, and he's like, okay, who speaks English? And I raised my hand. The other guy was from Spain. Okay. And he's like, oh, okay. He's like, cool, you're going to do this interview. And then this reporter came out of, I don't know, I swear she came in like in a smoke bomb or something. This reporter showed up with a camera, and all of a sudden I'm on camera. Wow. And they're like, and it's for the station called NHK. And NHK television is an English news channel in Japan. And they wanted to do a story on somebody coming to Japan to take this 5th degree test. And I do not want attention. Like, I am in the Hombu dojo. I am surrounded by my senpai and like these master instructors. And now they're interviewing me. And then one of the guys that was hanging out with me, he's like, oh, yeah, he's in the Navy and he teaches weapons. So the reporter, they're right up like, oh, so you're a U.S. Navy weapons. And like, I'm in another country. You're not supposed to talk about that kind of stuff. Yeah. They're like, okay, so you teach weapons. Won't you go show us some stuff? And I'm like, oh, man, come on. there's so much more talent in the room. And right now I'm just looking for a place to hide. So there's a video out there. So I go and I pick up a bow staff because it's just one that I can just kind of put my intention into the staff a little bit. And when I watched the video, I couldn't help but laugh because there's a scowl on my face the whole time I'm doing this. It reminds me of like an 8-year-old me feeling just like I had been wronged by being made to go to church. Wow. And I'm sitting there and I'm spinning this bow staff, which is probably only 15 or 20 seconds. And they're like, no, keep going. And I've got everybody just staring at me and making little comments and watching me like, man, I hope he passes. That'd be really embarrassing. And wow. It was not where I wanted to be.
Wow. That's awesome though.
Yeah, it's funny looking back. And so we went to the Daikomyosai. And my understanding is they didn't even do the test really on the first day. That was more of a second day. And then on the third day, people who had failed it, would get a chance to retake it. And the test is taken by basically you're sitting on your knees, your eyes are shut, and the master will stand behind you with in old times it was a sword, but a bokken or a shinai, and they just bring it down on the top of your head, and you've got to roll out of the way. Wow. And I'll talk about that part here in a minute because there's a lot of it's kind of interesting. So I'm sitting there, we're training in the Daikomyosai. I'm looking around, I'm kind of keeping an eye out for these news people because I am not. I'm still not real happy about this whole thing being televised. And it's already been put out that I'm in the Navy. This is going to be on TV. I don't even know if I'm going to be in trouble for this. God forbid should I fail. Yeah. And because, I'm representing the Navy. I'm representing my teacher. I'm the U.S. guy. Wow. And I thought I was pretty good. And then about 5 minutes, I think it was like 4 or 5 o'clock, whatever. I don't remember the time that it ended the training, but it was like 5 minutes before the class ended. Boom. Here comes the reporter. Here comes the camera. And like, okay, everybody who's taking the Godan test, line up. Wow. And I'm like, oh, man. So I'm somewhere in the middle. So the first guy goes up there, shuts his eyes and is like, whack, nope. And then the next guy, whack, nope. Third guy, whack, nope. And I'm like, oh God. Fourth guy, whack, nope. And then the next guy is like, what? Okay, hold on, do it again. And then the second, then he passed. And I remember thinking, man, they're slaughtering people.
Wow.
But when I got up there, it was one of those, it's like, okay, now I got to let go. And the guy who gave me the test, he did a really good job because I could feel the threat behind me.
Nice.
And then it was moving when you felt the danger. And that's the only way I can describe it. All I know is I rolled and everybody started clapping. You actually kind of come up with more questions than answers after that test.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've heard people, well, did you hear it? Like, you don't have time to hear something and respond. The Shinai, the sword is falling. You don't have enough time to move off of something like that.
Exactly.
You really have to open up and feel. And you kind of want to do it again because it's like, okay, I don't know what just happened. And that's not an option.
Right. It's
just to open up and show you that, hey, this goes a lot deeper than what most people can do.
That's cool.
So it was a day.
Yeah.
And then I remember I was teaching at one of my students' dojos down in North Carolina. When we sat down for a lunch break, they're like, "Oh, we want to tell you something," and then they show me the YouTube video that somebody posted, but nobody still admitted to whoever put that up this day.
So is it still out there?
It is.
Okay.
I think I tried to. I'm pretty sure I sent you a copy of it.
Oh, that was okay. Yeah, cool.
But I didn't even know that thing existed.
That's good though. I mean, that's still pretty cool thing to have a record of. So
yeah, you just never feel as stupid as when you're talking on TV.
Yeah, I know. That's why I like doing audio only on my podcast. I have no interest in being on camera.
Yeah, I understand. It's a good strategy.
So then how long after the test did you go back to the U.S.?
Within a couple of days.
Okay.
I went to Japan. I would try to go to Japan, and I would try to go there for about 10 days at a time.
Okay.
So I could get at least a good 7 or 8 days, 6 or 7 days of really good training, as well as some days just to kind of wander and just explore Japan.
Nice.
Because to understand that art, you really, you kind of want to really get yourself involved to try to understand the culture.
Right.
So, yeah, it was a really neat experience.
So when you decided to move there 2017, 2018, was that connected to the Navy or how did that work out?
Yeah, that was a Navy thing.
Okay.
It just happened to be to Japan. Like I'd been to Japan several times. At the time, I was working with Naval Special Warfare, and I had no intentions of ever leaving Naval Special Warfare because once you work there, you don't want to work anywhere else.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, I got orders to Sasebo, Japan, which is in the southern tip. So it's down near Nagasaki Prefecture.
Okay.
So that was totally unforeseen and surprise because at that time I had 4 kids and I was 18 years into my career and moving my entire family on the other side of the globe when my kids had grown up in the same house. It was a hard time. But I mean, I love Japan. It was great to get back. And my kids, my whole family got to experience that culture.
That's cool. How old were the kids at the time?
My eldest was like 15, 13, 7, and like 2.
So have your kids and your wife gotten involved in martial arts then?
My wife was when we first started dating.
Okay.
And that was more of a hang out with me thing because I wish I keep trying to talk her into training, but she's just not having that at this point in life.
Yep.
My kids, my eldest, not as much, but my other kids, I've made train.
Okay.
Especially since I opened this dojo, they don't have a choice. So
that's good though. That's something I think every kid should have to do at some point in their life. So I agree with that.
Sure. I think it was really cool. My oldest boy, he's 19 and he's actually in Great Lakes right now going through school, the same school I did.
Oh, nice.
25 years ago. But I got to watch him start to love it and start to get good at it.
That's cool.
And it was very cool to see. So I can't wait to get him back here.
Yeah.
Because, he was really starting to excel. I really hope that he continues to get his black belt.
That would be cool.
It is. I'll never just give it to him.
No.
I really hope he comes back to it.
Oh, fingers crossed. I hope so too. That's the same with my kids. I'm hoping that they all got their junior black belts. I'm hoping 1, 2, or all 3 of them will come back at some point and go for their adult black belt.
Right.
We will see. Got to let them live their own lives at some point.
I do. You got to earn it. It's not something that's given.
Exactly. So you talked about the new dojo. So talk about that. After you retired, was that a fairly easy decision? Did you know before you retired you were going to be doing this after you retired, or how did that happen?
I'd always, I don't know how to not train, if that makes sense. That's my life. And my original teacher, he doesn't teach publicly, and he doesn't teach anymore.
Okay.
And age, or not, just things happen, and he's just not teaching anymore. So it's like there is no dojo here.
Okay.
So I think, okay, well, I got to open. And I had permission from him years ago that when I retired, that I could come back here and open my own dojo.
Nice.
So I found the place. Place is beautiful. It's a historic building. I don't pay much for rent here. I'm just in a really good spot to do it. And because the freedom I have is being retired and working for the sheriff's department, this is not my source of income.
Right.
So all the dojo has to do is pay for itself. And it does that easily.
Okay.
And everything I make extra, I pour it right back into the dojo with upgrades and weapons and stuff. Now that's a tax write-off because I don't want to be taxed at it anyway, because that's not what this is about. So I'm able just to put anything extra into the dojo, and I almost break even. I'll just leave it at that. I still spend a lot of money training.
Yeah, that's awesome, though. That's really cool. How has it been? Is it fairly successful? How many students do you have?
The dojo itself is, it's successful. I've got probably 14 or so in my kids' class.
Nice.
And I've got some real alphas in there too. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they become as they get older.
That's
and
cool.
Originally I was on the fence about teaching a kids class, but I have my own kids.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been really great. I went and ate lunch with my daughter today, and 8 or 10 kids right there in the lunchroom. They all know me. So that's great. I have about the same as far as adult students.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of my adult students are here. Some of them live a couple hours away from back when I was teaching, when I was active duty and stuff.
Okay.
The longest standing one of them, my most senior student, he's trained with me for 20 years now.
Oh, wow.
And so about the same as far as the adult students. And then we'll host seminars and stuff, and people will come in from out of town to attend. So yeah, it's doing well.
So that gentleman you just mentioned that's been with you 20 years, is he your first student that you brought all the way to black?
Yes, actually.
Very
He is
cool.
my first student from never having trained before to black belt.
That's good. And that's cool that he's still doing it. That's awesome.
Oh, yes. We wouldn't know how to not deal with each other, if that makes sense. So
if by chance we have some listeners in your area and they want to come in and check out the school, what could they expect in the class?
ukeme, rolling, jumping, moving. We're going to put our hands on you.
Nice.
You're going to land on the mat. Bruises, but not injuries. So I can happily say I've never accidentally injured anybody.
That's good.
We've had a couple that we purposely had to take care of, but that was years and years ago. You get some weird people that come into these dojos sometimes.
Yes, you do.
A lot of weapons training.
Okay.
And a lot of philosophy. Like there's a reason that we do what we do, and it's more of a lifestyle, not a gym membership.
Right.
So at this point, I'm not really interested in casual students at this point in my life.
Right. You want the dedication.
Sure.
And
sure.
How many nights a week are you teaching?
Minimum 3.
Okay.
Sometimes, like this last week, we actually had a Saturday class as well. Monthly, I'll do a 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. Saturday class. So that was, 4 nights this week.
Wow.
That's 4 nights, but that's 6 classes.
Okay.
So, 2 kids classes during the week, 3 adults, and then the Saturday class. On an average week, it's 5 classes, 3 nights a week.
So a 5-hour class on a Saturday, what type of stuff is that? A specialized class? Or is that just like a normal one?
Usually we're picking out a weapon.
Okay.
And we start, we'll pick out a weapon and we'll say it's something that we'll be working on the Saturdays for like the next 4 months.
Okay.
So we start at the beginning and go through the kata. And then after we get done with the kata, we'll push it a little bit further.
Nice.
So there's just so much to teach that if I was just doing something a couple nights a week, there'd be no way to touch it. So
you mentioned weapons. I got to ask, you've trained with a lot of them over your martial arts career. What's your favorite weapon?
I love the sword.
Okay.
And I love the sword because I grew up under Conan and Luke Skywalker.
Mm-hmm.
I like the sword. It's kind of that, I want to get philosophical, kind of like that rosary of Buddha. Like it's the first weapon that was really designed for the taking of another life. Or the taking of another person's life. Like, your spears, your knives, they were tools and hunting weapons and things long before they were used in warfare, where the sword was developed purely for the, for the fighting of other, people.
Right.
And the philosophical kind of responsibility that comes with that, right? You're talking samurai, or you look at the orders of knighthood in Europe, the sword was the shape of a cross on purpose. that sword shape of the cross didn't exist before Christianity.
Okay.
It was, you had to carry your own cross. There was a responsibility and a burden that came with carrying those weapons. And I get kind of romantic when I'm talking about the sword.
That's cool though. And speaking of swords, I kind of curious, how did you end up getting connected with Dan Blizniak? And I know he mentioned that he'll send you bokens to test and basically say, try to break these. How did that relationship start?
Well, I've actually, where I'm sitting, I've got a tachi that I received from him last week.
Okay.
And 3 places up on that peg on my weapons rack is another tachi I bought from him almost 20 years ago.
Wow.
When I started training, when I joined the Navy and we moved, when I started having adult money, I didn't want cheap training weapons anymore.
Right.
So I started buying these custom. And back then, there was only a few makers out there. I had a couple of Boken from Dan Blizniak back when he hadn't been making weapons long. There was a guy named Kim Taylor in the Sedokai Supplies. They were out of Canada.
Okay.
Almost said Canada, but out of Canada, and they made a lot of custom. Like I ordered some custom Boken and stuff like that, and I don't know, to just kind of pay that respect to the art. I kind of want my tools to be pretty. If this is what I do, then I want my equipment to reflect what I think of the art.
So what was that reaction like the first time he said, "I'm going to send you this, please try to break it"? Was it just a big smile on your face?
Well, we had talked a whole lot.
Okay.
And I've got, within my view, I can see at least 12 weapons that he's made in my dojo right now.
Wow. That's cool.
More than that, I actually have a rack over in the corner that has some of his stuff that he'll send me stuff down and I will put it up for sale here.
Oh, okay.
And
that's cool.
And I make no money on it. I want to get his name out there. So if they see something here they buy, I'll direct them. They can PayPal his website right there and then they walk out with it. He makes good stuff. You can feel an intentionality he puts in the tools that he makes. So he and I fired some ideas. We use a lot of weapons. So I talked to him a lot about the different weapons we used, and he's made a whole bunch of very unique weapons. And he knows that we go at it down here with him. So when he came up with this idea of this flex core, he sent me down a Boken. Or sorry, not a Boken. He sent me down a Joe staff. He sent me down an Ipe Joe staff, and then he sent me down a flex core Ipe Joe staff so that I have 2 there to compare them. And at the time, our Saturday classes were focused on the Joe. So that's it. We put them to work.
That's cool. How many did you successfully break it, or did it survive?
The Joe staff, I did not break.
Okay.
The Joe staff actually, it broke my senior students' diamond wood Boken, it put a big crack down the center of it.
Wow.
And just a dent in the wood on the Joe staff, but it cracked the diamond wood.
That's impressive.
It was a special shot, too, because I remember the Joe came down and it hit directly dead on forward into the tip of the Boken.
Wow.
And it didn't crack the Joe, but it cracked the Boken.
Wow. That is cool.
I had to send them pictures and I had to gush all about it and tell them, hey, this is what happened. And then Dan, just being the kind of guy he is, he made my senior student a diamond wood Boken and just gave it to him when he came down here.
That's cool.
Just gave it. He's like, just replaced his Boken for free. The one that
broke, yeah.
He didn't make that one. He just replaced. Yeah, he's a very good guy.
Yeah, I got that impression. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting those tonfas from him. I'm excited about that. So
yeah, watch out. There's going to be an addiction that happens.
Hey, trust me, I get that. So now, before we started recording, you mentioned that just last week you had another interview. So first of all, I'm curious, as much as you didn't really like doing that first one, what made you want to do this one last week, and just talk a little bit about that experience?
Well, so the local news, they actually reached out to me. And they have a thing they do every month on the last Thursday of the month where they focus on the local veterans in the community, kind of like what you did while you were in and what you're doing now that you're out. And it's interesting because I never reached out to them. They reached out to me. So how they got my details, I couldn't tell you. But it was a very strange message. It was like, if this is the Navy veteran who served 22 years and is a deputy sheriff and has the dojo, please return our call at... It was really nice. They came out, she came out, we talked about my career, what I did, Iraq, Afghanistan, time with the teams, family life, and then what I was doing now. And so I came in, the whole interview was done here in the dojo. And it's strange because I got that phone call about 2 days before I received the message from you.
Oh, wow, really?
Oh, yeah. So I was like, yeah, it was pretty interesting. But I tell you, with doing a television interview, nothing will hurt your feelings more than watching yourself on TV and then seeing pictures pop up of you like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh God, I got to go do push-ups. Um, you know, in pictures of me in Iraq and Afghanistan when I was, working out a little bit more. And it's like, oh man, gravity.
I see pictures from, back in the 90s when I, best shape of my life, when I used to work out 7+ days a week. And it's like, man, I don't know if I'd want to be that small again, but geez, I was in good shape.
Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, I would have sucked in a little bit more if I'd have known these pictures were going to pop up.
There you go.
But,
that's good though. Since that aired now, have you gotten any people popping into the school because of that story?
I get picked, messed with a lot at the sheriff's department about it.
Of course. Yeah.
And then most of my students have seen it and their parents have seen it. And so as far as new students showing up because of it, no, not yet. But that's okay. I'm sitting in a very comfortable spot right now. So, it doesn't mean there might not be people coming. I've actually had a couple of veterans reach out to me.
Oh, that's cool.
From the local community about maybe meeting up and having a beer or something. Ends up they were deployed in the same time frame that I was and just kind of wanting to tell stories.
That's kind of cool.
It is. It was a really great experience.
That's good. Yeah, I'll definitely, with your permission, I'll include the links for both of those when the episode comes out. Let people see both of your interviews like 20 years apart. So
yeah. It's like, oh look, I used to be young and beautiful. Yeah.
There you go. You mentioned in your class a lot of philosophy involved in it. So, is there one philosophy for you that's at the top of your list? Never
forget to be a student.
I like it.
And I found so I've got a new teacher now, which was great because for like 15 years plus, I was kind of going solo, just kind of going and training as I could, but I didn't really have a specific teacher that I was underneath because at my rank, I didn't have to.
Right.
But what you find out is that I found myself, when I was teaching, but I wasn't training. You can say teaching is training, but you also still have to, you still have to put in the dirt time. You still have to go grind it out.
Right.
And, really, after coming underneath of my newer instructor, it's really inspired me. It's like, man, I've got to find time for what we call Hitori Gekko, which is our own personal training. Mm-hmm. And now, because I stay so busy, but teaching classes and stuff. So, I get up now Monday to Friday. I get up at 4:30 in the morning, and I'm in my dojo before 5.
Wow.
And I train till 6:15. And then I just go grab a quick breakfast, throw on a uniform, and go to work. Okay. So never forget to be the student. Because when you quit growing, you start dying.
Yeah. One question I completely forgot to ask you, what's the name of your dojo if people want to look it up?
Sure. It's there's a bunch of syllables here, but it's the Buchanan Onmitsukage Dojo.
Wow.
Buchanan is just where I live at. Okay. It's in Southwest Virginia. It's near Roanoke. I'm in the middle of Appalachia. Gorgeous place to live. You're in the mountains. It's just pretty. You're right here by the Appalachian Trail.
Okay.
And then Onmitsukage is kind of like the spies, the people in the shadows. And goes back to the old idea of the ninja and just observing and being quiet and learning.
Okay.
So
I found your Facebook page, so I'll include that link also.
Sure.
I know you said you've been, pretty lucky. You've never injured a student or anything like that. But what about you? Do you have a worst martial arts related injury?
Probably my best one was I got my sternum fractured.
Damn. How did you do that? Wow.
I think I zigged when I should have zagged.
Ouch.
But there was a technique. Obviously, it's a very effective technique where the adversary is punching at you and you're shifting just off the line of attack and you set your fist almost like a spear. And so they're running smack into this locked fist right at the chest.
Oh, jeez. And
I knew the technique. This was one of my mentors back in the day. I knew the technique he was going to do, but back then we were training like we were Cobra Kai. So, yep, I let loose with this punch, and I got nailed in the chest. It looked like Charlie Brown kicking the football. My feet left the ground. I hit the mat, rolled back to my feet, didn't have my breath, but came up ready to go. And man, it hurt. It hurt a whole lot. Mm-hmm. And then about a month later, did the same technique and just felt like something wasn't right. It was like, man, that one hurt. And then my mom was furious because I might have been 18.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Not 100% sure. And went and got it x-rayed. Yeah. So the sternum had been fractured, started to heal and refractured. So, yeah. Oh, man, I almost felt bad for the guy who did it because we picked on him. Oh, they called him the sternumator. And we were ribbing each other for a long time. But yeah, that's probably the most serious one I ever had.
So after you realized that the second time it fractured, did you actually take a little break from training?
my teacher wouldn't let me train very hard for a while after that.
Smart teacher.
I was still coming to class.
Okay.
But he was a little pissed when he found out that I'd actually gotten hurt. Because like I said, we bumps and bruises and stuff. It's like you should feel pain training.
Yes.
You can't really train without the pain. But injuries, they're not really acceptable.
Yeah.
So your partner is trusting you with their body. You have to make good on that trust.
No, I get that. And I'm kind of the same way. I'm like the stubborn one. If I get hurt, I'm back up on the mat right away, no matter what. And unless my instructor says, no, go sit down, you just sprained your ankle, which has happened before. So
yeah, that shouldn't look like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that too, a few times. Like, why is your knee that much bigger than the other one?
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's normal, sir. It's fine. It does that a lot.
It's fine. It'll grow back. It's fine.
That's right. All right. So what are your thoughts then on something like the MMA and UFC? Is that something you're a fan of? Do you watch that?
I'll watch it a little bit. Like I remember when they first started, I remember watching the Gracies and just, it's not my thing. I mean, I enjoy the athleticism of it. And,
right.
I'd actually enjoy watching boxing more than I enjoy watching the UFC because I really respect the health and I respect the athletes. But to damage somebody like that, no. In my own art, I think about like, you can't be combat effective if you're broken.
Right.
Like even in the military training and stuff that we did, you can't break each other. You have to be able to actually do the mission. And damaging somebody to win a contest, it just doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah, no, I think back to some of those, those original few UFCs, and I loved them. I was young.
Oh, yeah.
I was young, and I enjoyed that kind of. But thinking back now, it's like watching guys, get their hands broken and their teeth kicked out, and I'm like, damn.
Yeah, that's it. It's like, like the art I study is very deep. I still want to be training when I'm 70.
Yeah.
So, I mean, hats off. I mean, I don't want anything I got a lot of respect for those guys. It's just not something I have a personal interest in myself. I don't like getting punched in the face.
Yep. Agreed. It's happened a few times, but definitely don't enjoy it. So, I mean, luckily I have a very high tolerance for pain,
Sure.
but sometimes that's not a good thing. So
no, because sometimes like, no, I'm fine.
Yep.
No, it's backwards. You can't be fine.
I can think of at least 2 times where my instructor pulled me aside and said, you should be unconscious right now.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm fine, sir. It's kind of with yours. Your instructor sometimes maybe sees things a little more clear than we do, especially when we're young and stupid.
Yeah. And he's got to look out for our welfare. Like I remember training in the base gym one time. It was me and a buddy of mine. We had been really working some kinjutsu, and he had just gotten a new boken, and it was like 3/4 of an inch longer than the boken he'd been using for like the last 20 years. So moving off the line of attack, this boken came down and it caught me right across the forehead.
Ouch.
Had it been his regular boken, it would have missed.
Yeah.
But clipped just enough to open my forehead. And of course, the base gym had those little cheap brown paper towels, so which does nothing to stop the flow of blood.
Right.
And then I was like, man. So I was more aggravated that we had to stop our training because we were just really getting into it when that happened. So then I had to drive home, and it was funny because it snowed that day. And if you've ever been near Virginia Beach when it snows, people panic.
Mm-hmm.
So it took me 3 hours to get home. I had this wad of paper towels on my forehead, and my wife is furious at me.
Yep.
She is just mad. And I was like, well, you think you can glue it back together? Oh, man, she was mad at me. But I remember just coming home bleeding and, that made the wife mad.
I've been there a few times too. What's funny is one of my worst ones that had nothing to do with martial arts. I was working at a zoo one summer during college. Basically, there's this big wooden building where we had their food. So we were loading their food in, and the doorway to load it into was only like 4 feet high or something like that. And I misjudged the height. So I stood up and basically rammed my head into this 4x4. And I just kind of shook it off, and I kept working. My boss comes over. He's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I'm fine." He goes, "We need to write a report." And I'm like, "I'm fine." He's, "No, actually, we need to bring you to the doctor." I'm like, "Dude, I'm fine." And he's like, "We have to go to the doctor." So go to the doctor. Doctor's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yes." And he's asking me all these questions, and he reaches up and he pulls this little piece of wood out of my head, and blood just starts running down my head. He's like, "You should be unconscious right now." And I'm like, "Okay." And he's like, "I think you need stitches." I'm like, "No, I don't want stitches." Like, I'm like, "No, I don't. I've never had stitches. I'm not getting stitches now." And to this day, I've never had stitches, but nice little scar. But other than that, it's okay.
You should be unconscious. You're not my real dad. You're not the boss of me.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think at least 3 times now I've had someone tell me I should be unconscious, but luckily I've never been knocked unconscious yet.
been there once or twice. I don't recommend it.
No, I've seen a few other students. I still have one friend in martial arts class. He got sparring and took a kick the wrong way and got knocked out, and he was out for like a minute and woke back up and sat out, and then he came up and finished class. And afterwards we were talking about it, and he's like, "What are you guys talking about?" Like, dude, and he's like, "You guys are screwing." He completely none of it remembered. He thought we were messing with him. Even to this day, 30 years later, we bring it up. He's like, "You guys gonna need to quit bringing up that fake story." He's like, he thinks we're making it up. And I'm like, "Dude, you really got knocked out." And he same thing. He refused to go to the doctor.
Yeah, that's it. You're not the boss of me. I get it. Good
times though. Nice.
Yeah.
All right. I got a few fun questions we use to wrap up the show. We were just, talking about MMA, but I know you said not a huge fan, but let's say you were decided to do it. You were going to step into the octagon. What song is playing as you're taking that walk towards the cage? What's your walk-up music going to be?
Well, it'd be one of two. It'd either be Wish by Nine Inch Nails, because that's just, I remember the teenager, that song.
Yep.
Or I would have to go with Eye of the Tiger just to say I did it.
Nice. That one gets picked a lot, actually. Not surprising, but that one gets picked a lot.
If you lived during the 80s, that one's close to your heart.
Yeah. Probably be my second choice. Mine is always You're the Best from Karate Kid.
Oh, that's a good one, though.
That one's got a special place in my heart.
It got me in my feels watching it again here recently.
Yep. Oh, I watch that at least once a year. That's one of my favorite shows, and I've watched Cobra Kai.
Well, that's it. When we watched that last episode of Cobra Kai and they start playing it, I was like, what a classy finish to a cool show.
Got chills in my arms. It's so good.
Yeah. I was in my feels.
All right. Who are 3, 4, 5 names you'd put on your personal Mount Rushmore of martial arts?
Wow. I think not a lot of people know what I'm talking about. Miyamoto Musashi.
Oh, yes. He's actually picked a decent amount. Yeah.
Musashi, Yagyu Munenori.
Okay.
Who lived during the same time frame as Musashi. And, probably a couple of my own, like like Hatsumi Sensei.
Nice.
Ishizuka Soke. Yeah, I mean, I could go on, but not anybody would recognize from the movies.
Okay. Well, hey, that's four really good ones. So, all right. How about a favorite martial arts book?
I started to say the Book of Five Rings, but I think the one that probably got me the most was a book called Living the Martial Way.
Okay.
By a guy named Forrest Morgan.
One or two people have mentioned that. I've never read it. I need to get that.
I used to make it. It was required reading for my black belts.
Nice.
And it's really what it was about, is living in a martial way, like how to take martial arts and make it your life. Because if you can't use it, why are you putting the time into it? It's such a good book. And the title really is what it's about. It's a nice, decent sized book. It's broken up into pretty good, decent chapters where you can look up things that you're interested in and just read that chapter. It's such a good book. I've probably read it at least 8 or 9 times over the last 32 years.
Nice. I definitely need to get that one. I've like I said, at least 2 or 3 guests have mentioned it now, and I keep saying I'm going to get it, but I need to make a note and just go order it because I want to read that one now.
It's a good one, and it's a really good one for folks getting into the martial arts too, trying to figure out what do I do with this? Yeah, it's an excellent book.
All right. How about a favorite martial arts video game? Did you ever get into gaming?
Oh, I'd have to say Mortal Kombat because it was around the machine that I found the art.
Okay.
That, and there used to be this old game called Samurai Shodown.
Oh.
Back in the days of the arcades. It was like your Street Fighter stuff. Just everybody had weapons.
Nice. Okay. All right. How about a favorite martial arts TV show?
Well, Cobra Kai or Shogun.
The new Shogun or the original?
The new Shogun.
Oh, that was so good. That was so good.
Yes. And then Cobra Kai, I am such a team Johnny Lawrence that it's just not even funny.
Nice. So what are your thoughts on the new movie coming out? Are you excited about it? A little on the edge about it? What do you think?
Cautiously optimistic.
Yeah. Like I said, I wasn't a fan of the Jackie Chan one like 10 years ago. So I'm like, but obviously I'll go to it.
Yeah. That's it. There's a magic that's really hard to capture.
Yeah.
But from the first, when Pat Morita wasn't involved, it's not the same.
Yeah, I would agree. And the first one, like I said, I love, I'm a fan who actually, I like all 3 of them. I'll even watch the next Karate Kid every now and then. Not as many times as I watch the originals, but Pat Morita he's one, I actually put him on my martial arts Mount Rushmore.
Yeah. I guess I would have to give him credit because he was Mr. Miyagi. I mean, I remember watching it as a kid and just, that's it. Start buying the magazines.
Yep. All right. How about favorite martial arts movie?
Oh, some of the 90s Steven Seagal movies.
Yeah, like Under Siege.
Under Siege, Hard to Kill.
Oh, love Hard to Kill. That's probably my favorite one. Yeah.
But that is and also, but like Revenge of the Ninja.
Oh, yes.
And Ninja 3: The Domination. Those, they just live in my imagination.
I was just talking about Ninja 3 with someone randomly. Not even someone who's in martial arts. We were talking about cheesy 80s movies. He's like, do you remember Ninja 3: The Domination? I'm like, yes, of course I do.
The most violent first 10 minutes of any movie I've ever seen.
Yeah. Definitely. Good movie, though.
Oh, yeah.
I probably haven't watched that in over a decade. I should dig that one out and watch it again.
It's just as good rewatching it.
Nice. All right. Final question. Doesn't have to be a martial arts movie. Any movie you've ever seen, favorite movie fight scene?
All right. Now, this one, there's a couple of things that pop to mind, and I have to give them. The first one that comes to mind is the temple scene in Conan the Barbarian.
Nice.
And when he's painted with the white and black paint, and he sees the two Thulsa Doom's two main guys, and they recognize him. He brings a sword in front of them, and it starts the drum music again.
Yeah.
And that one just makes my cheeks flush when I just hear the music. I mean, that was just an epic fight. Right around the same, I don't know if you ever watched the movie The Hunted back in the 90s with Christopher Lambert.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I love that movie.
That last fight between Kenjo and the samurai in the rain.
Mm-hmm.
It was that one. And then here recently, the fight between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan in that series, in that new series. It was just
Obi-Wan series. Yeah.
Yes, that last fight, it got you in your feels. I mean, it was just very well done.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, it goes back to Conan.
Yep.
But those three, they're all very close.
Well, especially when you compare that Vader and Obi-Wan to the Vader Obi-Wan fight in the original Star Wars. I mean, obviously, stunt coordination and fight coordination has come so far since then.
Oh yeah. And then the special, I mean, it was just the dialogue. It was fantastic.
Yeah. No, I'm a huge Star Wars geek. So yeah, that one definitely I agree with too.
That's it. I'll hang up these swords when they figure out the lightsaber technology.
There you go. No, I even, such a diehard Star Wars fan, and my wife still gets upset about this, I think, but back in 99, when the episode 1 came out.
Oh, yes.
I was actually standing in line for 48 hours on my wife's due date with our first son.
Oh,
holding a cell phone, be like, if you're going to labor, call me. I'll probably be there. And the thing is, the story got out. I was interviewed by like TV stations. Is your wife really pregnant? Like, yeah. But the best part was, if I remember correctly, the original due date was like May 21st. And when she first, I said I was going to do this, she's like, no, you're not. I go, yeah. I go, my future child is going to be a Star Wars fan. He will wait for me. I guarantee it. Well, he ended up being born on May 25th, which is the date Star Wars came out in 1977. So it was meant to be.
Well, there was, I think it was Star Trek Nemesis back in the day. And I'm still of an opinion you can only be one of the two. It's either Star Trek or Star Wars. And me and my two roommates, we had Star Wars shirts. We went to Star Trek Nemesis. We sat there. We watched the preview just so we could see the preview for Phantom Menace. We paid the full ticket price. And then we got up and left.
That's awesome.
So
that's actually really cool. See, I didn't do that, but I've actually gone where I knew one was going to be playing before another movie. So I would actually buy tickets to a movie I wanted to see, but go really early and then sneak in, watch the trailers, and then go to the other movie. Yeah. I'm a big movie buff. I've actually said many times, if the movie theater had a thing where like, all right, tomorrow you can pay $5 and just sit here for an hour and watch nothing but new movie trailers, I would do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I would too.
Cool. Well, Joseph, man, this has been fun. Seriously, this has been a blast. I love your story. And I'm hoping one of these times when I'm traveling, I make it out that way. There's a lot of my guests out east that I want to meet in person. So hopefully I can pop in and see your dojo at some point. One of my dream vacations, I have a couple of them, but one of them I want to do is I want to fly up to Maine and then rent a car and just drive down the whole eastern seaboard and all these states I've never been to and visit areas and stuff, and then drive back to Minnesota and hit as many martial arts schools as I can on the way and visit guests and stuff. So that's hoping in the next couple of years I can make that happen. We'll see.
Oh, absolutely, man. I really appreciate you having me on. I'll put this podcast out as much as I can. I've listened to a bunch of the episodes, and I really like the way that you conduct them.
I truly appreciate it, man. Seriously, this has been a blast, and I think the listeners are really going to love it.
All right, man. Yeah, I appreciate it. I had fun.
Thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist. We hope you will join us every week for a brand new episode with a different martial artist telling their story. If you enjoy the show, be sure to leave us a review. Also, be sure to check out our website at everydaymartialartist.com. There you can find all of our episodes and contact us to suggest guests and ask questions. Again, thanks for listening to Everyday Martial Artist, and we'll see you next week.
This podcast is a production of Unfiltered Studios. If you would like to know more about joining Unfiltered Studios, please visit our website at unfpod.com for more information.